Welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host, Owen James, the channel that brings you your team every day, guys. We've got a bit of a story that's doing the rounds in a number of media sources as regards three possible departures from Rangers. Obviously not cast in stone, could happen, could not happen, but we do like to bring you all the latest information. One thing I'm always going to do, never ever be afraid to stop doing, is speaking my mind. And if people don't like my opinion, then that's up to them. You know what? Don't give a monkeys. You don't like what I say? Tell me you don't like what I say, but do it in a respectful manner. Like I said, always going to speak my mind. Why? Because I love this club and because I want this club to win again. And I want this club to go back to where it was as the dominant force in Scottish football. I'm fed up of us being second to that lot from across our city. So, what's the news? What's the story? Morning glory, as Oasis once famously sang. Now, according to reports in a number of media sources and Rangers fan sites as well, 3 Rangers players have been told that they can find new clubs this summer. No, we're not talking about Todd Cantwell again. He is obviously in the B team. Well, he's not even in the B team, is he? He must be in his own little, TC team at this rate. Didn't play for the B team yesterday against Middlesbrough. But you've got to kind of question the logic in that. You're trying to if you want to keep a player fit and match fit to sell him to get the maximum possible value, why are you not using him in B team games? I don't understand that. I know there's a risk of injury, but you still need a player match fit, especially if a club are going to give you market value for the player. Now, we all know that one of those 3 is Yanis Haji. That we spoke about that on the video this morning. Haji has been told pretty much that he will be asked to find a new club, that the club are willing to sell him. Philippe Clement came out and said as much yesterday, which in my opinion is a dumbass move to do because, like I said on the video this morning, if you come out and you say to a club, I do not want this player at my club anymore, he is not going to be a part of my plans anymore, you basically say to the rest of the football world, you can have him for cheap because you can come in and lowball us because we don't want him. We don't need him anymore. He's yours. Take him. Stupid. If you come out and you say, I want to keep this player, I'm not prepared to talk about that this time, then clubs have got to think, well, actually, do they want to keep him? Are we going to have to up our offer to get him away from the club? That's the way to do business. I do think at times some of the language that is coming out of Philippe Clement's mouth in recent days, and I'm a huge supporter of Philippe Clement, has been amateurish at best. And perhaps he does need a little bit more media savvy when it comes to dealing with players and players departing the club. Now, the other players, as the wind blows the door, not a ghost, the other player that has been discussed, or players, is the names Adam Devine and Alex Lowry, 2 young players at the club. Now, I think the reasoning behind this is quite simple. Both Devine and Lowry are out of contract in 2025. So they're out of contract at the end of this season, sorry. So both would be able to walk for nothing. Now, clearly, if the news is that they've been told that they can go and they can find a new club, then there is clearly a desire in Rangers not to offer these guys an extension, not to offer them a new deal, which, in the case of Devine and the case of Lowry, both of them having been youth prospects that have come up through the Rangers system, is quite sad. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't think Alex Lowry has a future at the club. I think I like Alex. I think he's a good player. I think he's technically gifted. I think he's very skillful. I think he's probably one of the most talented players to come out of the academy. I just don't think that he applies that talent enough on the football field. When he has been given an opportunity, yes, limited opportunities, I grant you. 14 appearances for Rangers, 2 goals, 2 assists, 17 appearances for Hearts, 1 goal, 4 assists. Rangers B team, 17 appearances, 12 goals, 3 assists. Yes, he perhaps hasn't been given the opportunity, but I think, he's never really 100% ever shown or grasped that opportunity for a player that is reportedly so talented. I know that Alex obviously has been through some very, very difficult times in his life just recently, in his very young life. I mean, I think we forget that this lad is only 21 years old. Obviously, he lost his mum last season, which, is tragic. I mean, in anybody's life, losing your mum is just absolutely earth-shattering and an end of the world as we know it, it would break me. It really would if anything happened to mine. But, obviously that has to be taken into account. Now, has Alex had a fair crack of the whip? Has he had a fair chance? I mean, clearly we don't see him every day in training. We don't see the attitude that reportedly that he has. Some people have reported that he has an attitude problem. Some people have reported that he has an issue with that. some of that could possibly come down to man management by the manager. Does the manager deal with that attitude in the right way? Does he deal with it in a redirective way? I think with a lot of people who state that they've got an employee who has an attitude problem, that is down to the way that you are managing that employee, not down to that employee. A lot of it, I think, is down to the way that you work with them, you develop them, you find a way in, and you find a way to get the best out of them. That's what the great coaches and great managers honestly do. So I think the whole attitude issue is a bit of a red herring in my estimation when it comes to Alex. Would I like to see him given more of an opportunity? Yes, I think I would. I think I would. Perhaps give him a crack. Do I think he's good enough? Look, I think it's difficult to assess, if I'm being honest with you. Like I said, have we got big enough of a sample size to really say that this kid is not good enough? Are we really genuinely asking this kid to hit the ground running and suddenly become the next, next Dennis Bergkamp, next Brian Laudrup, next Paul Gascoigne, next Lionel Messi, or whatever? Which is wholly unrealistic. But maybe the expectations were a little high and he needed a bit more time. I don't know. But, I think the one thing you've got to kind of take with this is these three players. I mean, Yanis Haji, I think, will generate a £3.5 million transfer fee. I think that could possibly drop to 2.5, given Philippe Clement's words. Realistically, Adam Devine and Alex Lowry, other than getting wages, which won't be that high off the wage bill, are not going to generate a fantastic amount of money. I think, you may get £1 million for Lowry, you may get £500,000 for Devine. So it's not going to create, a massive sum of money into the club, which will enable us to go and spend big bucks on the likes of Albion Rahmani, for example, for 5.1 million. More of that to come. Now, Adam Devine, right back, obviously, 21 years old. Again, I think a player who's never really had a fair crack of the whip. I think, he's been stuffed out of left back a couple of times. He's only made 11 appearances for Rangers. He made 10 on loan for Motherwell, and he made 11 appearances on loan for Brechin City as well. Has Devine ever been given a fair crack of the whip? Has Devine ever been really given a chance at the club? Well, I'd argue not, because he's playing behind James Tavernier. And, when James Tavernier is in your squad, and, no matter what you think of James Tavernier, defensively moving forward, you're realistically not going to get much of an opportunity. So has Devine really had a fair crack of the whip? That's a question you've got to kind of ask. Yes, if it is that he's refusing to sign a new deal, and move him on, or that it could be, like I said, that Rangers have decided that they're not going to offer him a deal and it's time to sell him. But I do feel a little bit sorry for Adam. I do genuinely feel that this lad hasn't had a fair go in at actually breaking through and looking like a Rangers player. Certainly he seemed to do okay for Motherwell last year, which would have been a lot tougher than obviously playing for Rangers. And Motherwell obviously really did struggle last season, didn't they? Hence the course of Motherwell fans to get rid of Stuart Kettlewell already this season. So, that's where we're at. And, these players may generate somewhere between £3.5–4 million between them. But again, that's not a king's ransom. That is not going to, really break the bank in terms of bringing in new players. And like I said, in the case of Adam Devine, a little unfair, I think, at not giving him a fair crack of the whip, especially when you're stuck behind Captain Marvel himself. No sarcasm intended there. Now, look, before anyone, what I'm going to say next, I know we'll get a lot of flack from people, but you know what? Don't care. And I know a lot of it is the fact that you may want players to go and you may want to sell players, but you can only sell what people are prepared to buy. It's basic supply side economics. At the end of the day, if you want to sell something and people don't want it, then you're not going to be able to sell it. It's just a fact. That's the situation. And I think with a lot of our players, due to A, them not being good enough, B, their wages being way too high, that they are not marketable assets. They are not players that the club will be able to easily sell on because of the fact that, let's take, for example, James Tavernier, £30,000 a week. Ben Davies, £27,000 a week. Robbie Matondo, £24,000 a week. Realistically, these players are not going to get a similar deal at an EFL Championship club or a club elsewhere in Europe. It just isn't, realistic at this point, especially with the demands of PSR, FFP, whatever you want to call it. Now, for me, yes, we can talk about, sensible suggestions to get rid of players in the last year of their contract, like Devine, like Lowry, etc. Yes, Haji, I think, seems to have left. But for me, there is a whole list of other players that need gone from this squad, a whole list of players that are really genuinely not good enough at all for this club. If we really are truly serious about developing Rangers back into a force in Scotland and then in Europe, then these are players that are quite simply not of sufficient standard to play for our team. I mean, James Tavernier is just, for me, past it. defensive liability. You know, can't tackle, can't track back. Dyson Maida walks past. I mean, look, he makes Dyson Maida look like prime CR7, like prime, I don't know, prime, some other fantastic winger from history. You know, prime Stanley Matthews, going way, way back. Scott Wright, a player that I've never understood how he gets a game for Rangers, a man with no end product. Cyril Dessers, a man so unreliable. He could work for, I don't know, he could work for the government. Rabbi Matondo, again, someone who flatters to deceive on a regular basis. Tom Lawrence, who, as long as he hasn't got a run, he's okay, but realistically, is that, you know, no. Kieran Dowell, I mean, nothing against Kieran. Kieran's a decent footballer, technically very good, technically very sound, but just injured too often. And Ben Davis, who, you know, looks a bomb scare. And I think part of the problem will be trying to get rid of these players. Who wants them? You know, that's the issue. These players obviously could generate a little bit more money than Devine, than Lowry, etc. And, you know, you can kind of say, are Rangers guilty of perhaps going after low-hanging fruit first and too worried about trying to get rid of some of these bigger names? You know, yes, I understand that obviously, you know, we can't get rid of them straight away because you can't weaken your squad because we haven't got the money to bring in a sufficient replacement. I understand that as well. You can't sell players that nobody wants. You can't cancel their contracts because that's economic suicide. Yeah, I get that. What I'm saying is these are the players in this short and long term that need to be gone from this club if we are truly serious about becoming the best in Scotland again and one of the best in Europe. Guys, let me know what you think of this story this lunchtime or this afternoon. Thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation. Please, obviously, smash that sub. On the way out as well, two things I always ask. Number one, smash that like. Number two, remember always, we are the people.